Reckless, the time has finally come. This is the last week of our videos for the school year. So shout out to all of you virtual students who are watching our last video, who have gathered in your groups for the last time for this school year. Shout out to all of you guys who are watching this from wherever you may be, whenever you're watching this. So excited that you have joined us for this week's video, for our last week as we land the plane both on our series If Jesus Was Like Us, but also too as we bring to a close this crazy school year that all of us have encountered and experienced, from doing virtual school stuff to meeting different days of the week, to even in student ministry, doing monthly gatherings, doing in-home small groups. So many changes that we've experienced over the last year. And so it feels like every day we're getting closer and closer back to normal, which is really, really, really good. For any of you guys that are joining us at Rush coming up here in a couple weeks, excited that you're going to be with us for an amazing week. But thank you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. You know, we set this up at the beginning of the year as a way for all of our groups to be able to have the content and to be able to kind of have a starting point of what we're talking about and keep us all on the same page. But then it quickly turned, as we moved back to in-person gatherings, it quickly turned into an opportunity for those of you guys who are still virtual, who are maybe not comfortable coming into in-person gatherings, or maybe you don't even live within the Dallas, Georgia area. And so this has become a place for you to get connected. And so that's what it's become. And I'm excited, even as we look ahead to next school year, as we look ahead to some of the things that we're going to be doing even over the summer. Man, this is something that's here to stay, and continue to look for opportunities that we can keep you engaged as virtual students. So excited that you're joining us. I only have one thing that I want to mention. It's kind of a big deal before we get into our worship and into our message for this week. And so I mentioned last week that we were going to make an announcement about some important changes that we have coming up in student ministry. And so I do want to make you aware of some things that are coming, especially as we look ahead to the fall. So one of the things that I'm increasingly burdened by is our inability to be able to reach as many students as possible on Wednesday night. I see more and more that more sports are happening, more practices, more games, more conflicts with dance or with this or that extracurricular activity. And it just seems like more and more Wednesday night is not conducive to a lot of students' schedules. And so for us, if Reckless is the front door for our ministry, we want to reach as many students as we possibly can within our community. And so it's become more aware to me that Wednesday night just isn't the best time to do that. And so I'm excited that in the fall, starting in August when we launch back, that we're going to be moving our services to Sunday night here at Westridge. And so what that means for you as a virtual student, if you're not comfortable meeting in person or not able to join us in person, that means that we're still gonna move your groups to meet on Sunday night. And so I'm excited about the potential of that. I'm excited about what that's gonna mean for our ministry and the opportunity for us to be able to reach even more students within our community. So that is coming, and so be on the lookout for more details and more information about that. The other thing that I'm excited about is we're looking at ways that we can challenge those of you that are ready. We talked about how we want to raise up the next generation of students who are going to be world changers, pastors who are going to be missionaries, who are ready to take the church forward. And so what I'm learning is that in order for us to do that, there's got to be more than just a Wednesday night or more than just a Sunday night, an hour service, an hour of groups. There's got to be more to it than that. And so what we're introducing and starting over the summer is a new discipleship group called All In. And so what this means is that for students who are saying, hey, I want to be all into my faith, I want to be that next generation of the church who is going to passionately and courageously follow Jesus. And maybe I want to be a missionary or a world changer. Maybe I want to be a church planter. I don't really know what God's calling me to. I just know that I'm saying to God, here I am, send me. I want to be all in my faith and allow that to be the driving force behind everything that I do. And so if that's you, then this new group, All In, is for you. And so what we're going to be doing over the summer is launching a 4-week discipleship group for any students who are willing and ready to take that step. And so if you're ready for that, you can text All In, all one word, ALLIN, to 770-222-2125. And so we'll follow up with you, let you know kind of a next step for you, what the dates are going to be for that over the summer. And then as we launch into the fall, into the next school year, we're going to be having throughout the year different 4-week segments for students to be able to sign up for and jump in. And each 4-week segment that's spread throughout the school year is going to be kind of a different focus, different different conversation, different content that we're going to be talking about. But all of it, the goal is to help students be equipped and ready to be the church and to love God courageously and passionately with everything that they've got. And I believe this is going to help us better equip and prepare students to be who God's called them to be. And so again, if that's you, you can start even over the summer. Text All In to 770-222-2125 and we'll follow up with you and allow you to take your next step. Well, I'm excited for this week's video and our guest speaker for this week. It is Christy Meldrum. If you don't know Christy, she actually was our student ministry assistant when I first got here at Westridge and then couldn't stand me any longer, so she left shortly after. No, just kidding. She actually came back. She's on staff now, oversees our guest services and so many details of our Sunday morning experience. And she's been a coach for us in high school and has so much wisdom and knowledge, does a great job. And really high school students are her heartbeat in so many ways. And so she's going to be bringing the message as we finish up our series, If Jesus Was Like Us, and a really critical conversation that I think all of us are going to be challenged by. But before we get to that, we're going to allow Spencer and Jason and the team to lead us in worship one last time. And then Christy will be back to close us down for this message and our school year.
I've tried so hard to see it. Took me so long to believe it, that you choose someone like me to carry your victory. Perfection could never earn it. You give what we don't deserve it. You take the broken things and raise them to glory. You are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you've won. I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who has conquered it all. Now I can finally see it. You're teaching me how to receive it. So let all the striving cease. Oh, this is my victory. You are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you've won. I am who you say I am. Crown me, Lord. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who has conquered it all. You've conquered it all. Stand undefeated. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Let's prophesy together. Come on. When I lift my voice. When when I lift my voice and shout, every wall comes crashing down. I have the authority Jesus has given me. When I open up my mouth, miracles start breaking out. I have the authority Jesus has given me. When I lift my voice and shout, every wall comes crashing down. I have the authority, yes I do, Jesus has given me. When I open up my mouth, miracles start breaking out. I have the authority, yes I do, that Jesus has given me. You are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you've won, and I am who you say I am. Crown me, Lord, you crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated. By the power of your name, I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who has conquered it all. You've conquered it all. You are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you've won, and I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated. By the power of your name, I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who has conquered it all.
Is Christy, and I am so excited and honored that I get to bring the very last message in this series and the very last message of Reckless for this school year. And so, as I am sure you know, we are in a series called If Jesus Was Like Us, where we've taken themes and different scenarios and stories where we look at how Jesus handled a situation and we compare it to how we would handle a situation. And it really just sets up this scene for us of how God stepped in and handled something, and it really shows us the way that we should do that as well. And so today, on this very last Reckless of this school year, we get to talk about Jesus and one of his disciples named Peter. He was his main chief disciple, and just this story that we find in Matthew 26. And so I'm just going to go ahead and dive right in so that we can cover everything that we have to cover today. So this account where Peter denies Jesus is actually in every gospel: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But I am going to read today from Matthew 26. And I'm just going to summarize for you most of it. And then right at the end, where it really talks about this particular scene, I'm just going to go ahead and read that word for word. And so in Matthew 26, right about verse 17, we find Jesus, and he has gathered his 12 disciples together. And this is such an interesting conversation he has, because it's everything from being straight up and calling him out to really talking about how his death is upcoming. The crucifixion of himself is upcoming. And so I want to jump right in where Jesus shares with the disciples that one of you will betray me And this kind of sends the disciples into a frenzy, like, no, not me. Am I the one, Lord? And it kind of is reverting back to verse 14, where it said, what he's referring to here is something that happened back in verse 14, where Judas had gone to the priest and asked, how much will you pay me to betray Jesus to you? So he's talking to the high priest, and they gave him 30 pieces of silver. And from that time on, Judas began looking for an opportunity to betray Jesus. And so just kind of like calling out some things that are going to happen that he knows are going to happen. And then he has this real intimate moment. And I don't know if you guys have been at Westridge or even in student ministry when we have taken communion, but basically Jesus is setting up what we now call communion, and he's sharing in bread and wine. And this bread represents his body and the wine his blood. And so he says this in verse 26. As they were eating, Jesus took some bread and blessed it, and then he broke it in pieces and gave it to the disciples, saying, take this and eat it, for this is my body. And then in verse 27 and 28, he talks about that wine, and he took a cup of wine and he gave thanks to God for it. He gave it to them and said, each of you drink from this, for this is my blood, which confirms the covenant between God and his people, and it is poured out as a sacrifice to forgive the sins of many. So the representation of his body and the representation of his blood. And so then immediately after that, we go right into verse 31, where Jesus says, tonight, all of you will desert me. So he goes into this like sharing of this real intimate moment of the representation of his body and the representation of his blood. And then he just is going straight to the core that what's about to happen is going to be intense. And you, my disciples, the ones who are following me, the ones who are walking with me, you are going to be the ones who actually desert me. And so this is what follows. Peter chimes in verse 33, and it says, Peter declared, even if everyone else deserts you, I will never desert you. And Jesus replied, I tell you the truth, Peter, this very night, before the rooster crows, you will deny 3 times that you even know me. Wow. Peter insisted in verse 35. He was like not taking that for truth. And he said in that last verse 35, no, even if I have to die with you, I will never deny you. And all of the other disciples vowed the same. They could not even paint this picture of actually denying Jesus. The rest of this chapter is a very long chapter, but now we're at the point where Jesus really was arrested. And we jump to verse 69. And in verse 69, through the next few verses, I'm going to read word for word, because this is actually the picture where what Jesus had predicted does come true. And Peter does deny Jesus 3 times right in a row. And so we start at 69. Meanwhile, Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard. A servant girl came over and said to him, you were one of those with Jesus, the Galilean. And Peter denied, strike one right here. Peter denied in front of everyone, I don't know what you're talking about, he said. Later, out by the gate, another servant girl noticed him and said to those standing around, this man was the Jesus of Nazareth. Again, Peter denied it, this time with an oath. I don't even know the man, he said. Strike 2. Verse 73, a little later, some of the other bystanders came over to Peter and said, you must be one of them. We can tell by your Galilean accent. And in verse 74, Peter swore, a curse on me if I am lying. I don't know the man. And immediately the rooster crowed. The exact prediction. 3 strikes right there. Suddenly, Jesus' words flashed through Peter's mind. Before the rooster crows, you will deny 3 times that you even know me. And he went away weeping bitterly. He was broken apart that what Jesus said was really true, that he would deny Jesus. And I think it's so interesting in the account of Luke how this last verse kind of played out. Verse 61, at that moment, the Lord turned and looked at Peter. And suddenly the Lord's words flashed through Peter's mind, before the rooster crows tomorrow, ... you know the rest. And so they made that eye contact, which I thought was so interesting in Luke's account. And so that's kind of what's going on. I just wanted to paint that picture a little bit before that denial, and now we're at that part, and Jesus has been arrested and he's being beaten and he's soon to be crucified. And so I want us to put ourselves in that situation. I'm going to put myself in a situation and share something very personal to me. And I want you to do the same with me. And so here we have Peter, the chief apostle, as he was referred to, went from that intimate, special relationship with Jesus. And he wasn't just one of the disciples. He was like the main disciple. He was the head honcho of the disciples. And in Matthew 16:18, it even says, "Now I say to you that you are Peter, which means rock. And upon this rock I will build my church." So he has all of this ministry invested into Peter, and he has a plan for Peter to really build his church, which he has done even up until that point, and then to deny him 3 times. And so I don't know about you, but here's what my response would look like. I think it's easy in our culture, in this world, there's so many messages and loud voices, that if somebody kind of crosses me the wrong way, much less denies me, I'm a good friend, I'm a faithful friend, and they deny me, they cancel me out would be a word that I think we all could relate to in this time in our lives. My response, first of all, I have a lot of facial expressions, and I am queen of the eye roll, and I would eye roll Peter to no end. I used to actually even get sent to my room, not for my verbal words, for my facial, my nonverbals. And so I would be like, no. Secondly, I would easily discount him. I would cancel him. One, because of lack of loyalty, lack of honor, and a disregard for relationship that we have a long history of. I mean, look at Jesus and Peter, they have this long history. If that was me, it would be so easy for me to be like, I put a lot of weight in you, but you are done. This next part, I want you to really think, what would your response be? Think about if you were in the shoes of Jesus and Peter had denied you 3 times. He canceled you out 3 times, very blatantly in front of a lot of people, very obviously. How would you have handled that if in your own scenario? And I want to share with you for a moment my own story where I feel betrayed and canceled out. It's something that happened a long time ago, but there's parts of this story that exist even today. And so I want to share this with you. I'm going to be honest with you. I've never shared this in a group setting like I am doing with Reckless. It's more something that God shows me one-on-one that might be a story for someone that would really help them. It's fitting, it's helpful in the situation. But I feel because we're talking about what our response can be compared to what Jesus' response is and how convicting that is. And I really asked God as I was getting ready for this to show me something in my own life that would make this story really personal and that I would feel it. And so I want to share the story of the relationship that I have with my mom. And I know many of you probably can relate to this first part of my story, which is one where your parents, they may be divorced or split up. I was actually raised in a Christian home. I was raised knowing who Jesus was. The Bible was taught to me from a very young age going on up. And so I actually always had thoughts that my parents were not going to be the parents who got divorced. Like I just never saw that. There's no way that that would happen in my family. And so, but sure enough, when I was 11 years old, my mom is actually the one who left, and my dad raised us for the most part as a single dad and eventually got remarried. And I have a really cool stepmom, and I'm so thankful for her. But my mom actually moved out of the state, and so it wasn't something where I saw her every other weekend or anything like that. And so we had a relationship where I would see her here and there, like we would fly to go see her, or she would come in town for like something big for school or something like that. And so that's pretty normal, I think, in a divorced family to, see them more likely every other weekend or something like that. But I just saw her here and there, but we had like a decent relationship for what you could in that circumstance. And I always loved her and admired her, and always wanted to spend as much time as I possibly could with her. But as time went on, our relationship became very difficult and very strained. And there came a point where my mom just didn't want relationship anymore with me and my brother. And so what I experienced from there on out was very much one of being canceled out or being betrayed. I felt like I wanted this relationship with my mom. I was so thankful for my relationship with my stepmom, but I wanted more. Like, I wanted this relationship with my mom, and she just kind of made a clear line there. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'd love to tell you that there's been this really great story of redemption there, and there's a pretty bow tied on it. But I'm here to tell you that even to this day, it's been 11 years since I have actually seen my mom, since I feel like I've been canceled out by my mom. And that is very difficult. And so every new season I reach, I got married a number of years ago. She doesn't really know my husband. I have 4 stepkids she doesn't really know. I have this awesome niece that is 2 years old that will make anyone's day better, and she doesn't know her. And so that breaks my heart in every new season. And so my story really is one where when I approach, which this whole story we're talking about today is really one of forgiveness. And we're going to look at how Jesus really forgave Peter in this beautiful way. And so this story is really one where my forgiveness, I've had to work out my forgiveness really with the Lord and what he's asking me to do. Really find the correlation between the story between Peter and Jesus and the one where I can understand some canceling out, some denying, some betrayal. Our story isn't just the same, and I'm by no means relating myself to Jesus, but I'm trying to understand what that felt like. But I'm also trying to always understand what my position is, what my move is, what is God wanting me to do, even if I don't have that pretty bow on top, even if I don't have that relationship currently with my mom. And so God is like giving me this just reminder of some similarities so that I can relate to this story. And it gives me this glimpse, the continued love and forgiveness that Jesus had for Peter. And it challenges me on what that kind of forgiveness looks like. Not just one time. I work this out with God, that he's who I have to work this. He's my hope. He is who I have. He's who I go to, who I run to. He doesn't let me down. And in this situation, I feel like my mom has let me down, and it hurts over and over. And so in every new season, like I had shared, where it hurts in a different way, God reminds me of that forgiveness in a different way. And so I just want to ask the question, what is your natural, like human-natured response when you hear this story of Peter and Jesus, that denial, so blatant in your face, and Jesus saw it and heard it, knew it. He knew it was coming before it ever came. What is your natural response? So maybe for you at school, there's somebody and they are canceling you out. They're denying you a friendship that you thought you really had. Maybe this is convicting you in a different way. Maybe your thought process is, I'm feeling convicted because I know that I'm canceling somebody out. I'm not giving them that chance. So we're going to talk about 2 little different ways here. So if it's anything like me, your like natural response, if somebody says something to me the wrong way or crosses me the wrong way, it's not necessarily what I do with my words. It's what I'm doing with my thoughts. I can so fast come to a place where I'm like, you're done. We're not friends. You're not my person. I don't want to ... Fill in the blank. What is that for you? So I can easily be, I'm done with you. I don't need you. Goodbye. Don't let the door hit you. I mean, just my flesh. That is honest human nature, Christy. That's where I can go so easily. So how do we get to a place where we don't cancel people out? And I just have these 3 things that I really want to share with you tonight that I hope that you can kind of grab a hold on too. And it's all directly related from what we learned in this story between Jesus and Peter. So number 1, we take this example of Jesus in the story and we really take the time to see people. Jesus saw Peter when they were surrounded at that table as he was preparing them that he was gonna be taken, arrested, crucified. He saw Peter. He knew what he was gonna do, and he predicted that. But still, we see this loving Jesus of the Bible. And so Jesus saw Peter not just for his denial, but that ministry that he had, and the ministry that he was capable of having. He knew what would happen far before it happened. He recognized that he was so human, and in his human nature, he was a sinner, and but not worth canceling out or writing off, and that's huge. We also, number 2, take this example of Jesus in the story, and we forgive people. I don't know about you, forgiveness is very hard for me to come by very often. And I hate to say that in a lot of ways because I wish that it was just so easy for me to forgive. And so Jesus' response to Peter was one of forgiveness, but not only forgiveness, one where he still really wanted to empower Peter in the ministry that he was going to have. And I'm going to talk about that in just a bit. I'm going to bring home this full story of forgiveness at the very end of our talk. But just this picture where Jesus is willing to forgive the way that he is. Jesus could have easily taken Peter down a notch, demoted him, but he didn't do that. Forgiveness is something many of us don't come by easy, me included. And then number 3, we take this example of Jesus in the story and we empower people. So Jesus empowered Peter to the ministry of building his church up for his name's sake. But have you ever thought of yourself as somebody who God meant to empower somebody else? We're just one right move away from being the most encouraging person in somebody's story, in somebody's life, in a situation. But we are also just one wrong move away from being the most defeating and discouraging person in someone's walk, in a decision that they have to make, in a next step. And so I want to remind us of this verse. I don't know if you've heard it before, but I love it. I say it often, and it's in Proverbs 18:21, and it says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue." But the Message version says it this way, and I really like it. It says, "Words kill and words give life. They're either poison or fruit. You choose." And so we get to have a choice in the way that we come alongside people. And empowering people is just this really beautiful picture that we see in this story. And so I wanted to come back around about how Jesus actually really forgives Peter. And so, all of that, the denying of Jesus happened before he died on the cross. And so I want to fast forward to after the resurrection. Immediately after the resurrection of Jesus, when the woman found the tomb and it was empty, and an angel who's a messenger said this exact verse, these words in Mark 16:7. "Now go and tell his disciples, including Peter, that Jesus is going ahead of you to Galilee. You will see him there just as he told you before he died." How cool is it that he points out, of everybody, Peter? He wants to make sure that Peter's there. He's included. He's loved. I feel so much love in that, but I really feel so much forgiveness. And then after the resurrection of Jesus, there's this moment too where Jesus asks Peter of his love for him over and over and over, not just once, 3 times, which is that direct correlation and a direct comparison to the 3 denials. And just a forgiving scene where he makes solid this love Peter has for him. And he says in this part, which is in John 21:7, so he's confirmed the love, "Then feed my sheep," which Peter knew meant people, and he was to lead people to build his church for his namesake, Jesus' name. And what a full picture of forgiveness. What a full picture of not canceling a person out, coming around somebody, loving somebody. And I just want to encourage you with a few things as we leave and as we're going to go dive into these questions in just a few moments. Some of you are in a place where maybe you have canceled somebody else out. You're going to take a leap of forgiveness on your part. And here's the thing about forgiveness. Forgiveness is a supernatural thing. God has to change our heart. The first step is that you would open yourself to what God wants. God wants that for us. He doesn't want us to have these big rocks in the way. He wants that path where you have forgiven maybe somebody who has canceled you out, or you have canceled out, whatever that looks like for you. My dad, when it came to my mom, he would challenge me over and over again about what it would look like for me to really forgive. I was really stuck in a stage in the very beginning of not forgiving her because I was so hurt. I was so crushed. I didn't have my mom. And I love my dad, the best dad, and I have 2 awesome brothers. But I missed my mom and I harbored anger. And my dad said, you know what, Christy, God wants to keep moving you forward, but that's going to take forgiveness in your heart, even if that's not something your mom wants to talk to you about right now. You today are living in a place where you feel like you have done the worst things and you feel distant from God because of it, and you think that it should cancel you out. But that is not the Jesus of the Bible. He takes the worst offenses and sins and finds a way to use those for his people, for his message, for the greater story of what he is here to accomplish. And you have to just believe it, and you have to want it, and you have to step forward in it. But the choice is yours. Today, God wants us to see this story of Peter. The things he did for you and me would be so easy to cancel out, right? But for Jesus, he has a constant love, a constant grace, and a plan beyond anything we can even hope or imagine. So don't step away from him. Take a leap towards him. I promise you, his arms are open and he's ready to use your life no matter the story you are bringing to the table. That is a good and gracious and faithful God. I'm not afraid to say it. I'm 40, and I continue to be challenged by the fact that although my flesh may feel one way, Jesus is my example. Jesus is my source, and he is who I follow every day, but I have to choose it every single day. My 40-year-old self would beg my high school self to believe that with everything I have. So the enemy likes to get us confused. He likes us to get us confused on the wrong path, and he is very, very sneaky about it. The more you are in God's word and are following him, the more you will feel the conviction when you have turned the wrong way. So let me end with this. Jesus is ready to forgive. He is ready to empower you, and he's ready not to cancel you. That is the Jesus of the Bible. Will you let him? Will you come to him? Jesus is ready to help you to forgive, help you empower, and help you to not cancel others out. Will you let him lead the way? Tonight in your groups, I want you to really dive into these questions and have a conversation about what this might look like for each of you.
Man, such a great word from Christy. Such a great way for us to end this series. Probably one of the most, if not the most challenging weeks of just looking at moments where we want to cancel people out, and how Jesus forgave and empowered Peter and used him even in spite of his denial and so many mistakes that he made. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn you over to your virtual groups. And so students, leaders, love you guys. Thank you so much for leaning in during this season. Hope you have a great summer, and looking forward to seeing you over the summer and especially next year on Sunday nights.